Hey there. I know this is different for me. I hate recording myself. You guys know me well. You know I hate this, but I do miss you. And I wanted to go through some things with you, preparing you to write your first really extended essay of the year. This is going to be an argumentative essay. We've covered all of the words related to an argument, and I'm going to walk you through a little bit. Now, I only have about 15 minutes on this recording device. So I'm going to go through a little quicker than I normally would. And then next week you will sign up for slots and we will work individually one-on-one through Zoom or Google Meet, whichever I decide. So what is an argumentative essay? Why do we have to do it? The state of Ohio, when you take your ELA test, you will most definitely have to write an argument. And the sole goal of an argument is to persuade the reader, and you can look at my screen here now, to persuade the reader that your claim is believable and true. And you know that your claim is a statement that of how you feel about a certain topic. And the topic that we're going to write about is whether or not violence, it's the highlighted there, in movies and video games increase violence in our culture. The writing prompt from the state exams, the end of the course exams, is going to look something like this. It's going to tell you to write a multi-paragraph response in which you argue whether or not violence in movies and video games increases violence in our culture. Your response is going to be based on information that can be found in the passages of 2 articles. I have already given you the 2 articles. You have already done some work on pulling out facts and statistics and claims and interesting things on those arguments. I've also attached them to this assignment. So one is violence in video games, and there's a lot of information here, and the other, violence in movies, okay? So let me get back to where I'm supposed to be. All right. The state test is going to remind you to review the passages, plan your response, write your response, and revise and edit. It's also going to tell you to be sure to include an introduction, evidence, all of that. And we're going to walk you through all of that. Not today, but moving forward. So again, your purpose is to persuade your reader that your claim is believable and true. And another way to view the purpose is to convince the reader to believe the way you do. You guys are so good at that. You convince me every day to not do work. Just kidding. You guys are really great at trying to convince people to believe the way you do. So that's what you're doing in your argument. Now here's the kicker, and I try to explain it, but it comes out a little odd. You don't actually have to believe that way. I have written many arguments that are not my personal beliefs. Okay, so in the 5th and 6th grade, and even in the 7th grade, you're really writing and you're centered around, I believe, this is my opinion, and you're really trying to really portray your own personal moral standard belief, that ethical, that ethos. You're really trying to prove the way you believe. You're going to kind of transition, vocabulary word, from that to creating the most well-informed argument. So the state of Ohio, when you read these passages, you're going to kind of feel that they're leaning one way or the other. For example, both of the violence in movies and violence in video games articles I sent you, they kind of lead in a particular way. And that's the way you kind of want to go. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to believe that way. I told a story that my son, Braden, he's been playing war games since he was 8, 9, 10. I allowed him to do that. And progressively, they got a little bit more violent and a little bit more graphic. And especially as graphics change throughout technology, they've improved so much just in the last couple of years. Especially since I was a kid, you should have seen Contra. The guns were so... Anyway, but he's never done not one act of violence. So do I personally believe that playing violent video games increases my children's increases the stats of violence in children? Not really. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I believe on that. But after I read these articles, it would be very easy for me to write an argument stating that it does, because a lot of research has backed that up. So again, it's a little confusing, and we'll talk one-on-one about this, but your claim does not necessarily have to be how you personally believe. All right, let's move on. All of you have had me last year, so all of you know that an essay absolutely includes 5 parts, mostly. There's 3 main parts: the introductory paragraph, body paragraphs, and a conclusion or a concluding paragraph. Within those 3 parts are a couple other things. So let's go through that. Today and tomorrow, by Monday, you will have from me an introductory paragraph. And this is where you will introduce your topic. The introduction has 3 main elements, and for the purpose of just remembering and a little way to remember, you're going to do hook, line, and sinker. Okay, that's an old saying. So the hook, I'm sure you've heard of before. I talked a little bit about it last year, but Mrs. Sowash kind of drilled it into you as well. The hook is your opening line, and it's what you want to put out there to make your reader interested, okay, in what they're about to read. If I had 5, think of it this way, if I had 5 essays laid out on the table, and I just had to base your essay, whether or not I was going to read it, on the first line, who would I choose? Which one draws me in and makes me interested? I think about some of the movies and different things I try to find on Netflix, and when I first hit play and I see the characters, there's something about the first few minutes, maybe even the first 15 minutes, that makes me either want to continue watching it or turn it off. I clicked on one, and I think they were talking in another language, and it had, the English like dubbed over it. And I was like, 2 minutes in, nope, click. Because I personally just can't stand that little bit off. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. So what makes, a reader or someone watching want to continue reading happens in that introductory paragraph. So there's several different ways to write a hook, and this is actually a link to a website that I found that I thought was really good. Right? Why should I write it all out, type it all out when there's so much out there that you can do? So if you want to click on this, it'll give you how to write a good hook. It'll further, it'll go a little bit more in depth than I'm going to here on my timed video. So there are 7 main ways to write an essay hook. And I've listed them for you here. I'll give you some brief examples. And again, I don't want to talk too long, but an interesting hook sometimes starts with a question. This one, I don't like, because I think growing up you heard about the question, and so you get these: have you ever watched a violent video game? Have you ever played a violent video game and wanted to destroy something? We're a little bit beyond that now as 9th graders. So if you're going to open your essay with a question, make it a really in-depth and interesting question, not a have you ever or something of that sort. A strong statement is another way, and I think I'm kind of moving away from the question as 9th graders and moving into more of a very strong statement. I'm going to give you examples pertaining to our topic, okay? So let me think. A strong statement might be: something must be done about violence in the media before another child is killed. Something like that. So a fact and a statistic, okay? Start your essay with a true fact or statistic. Something like homicide rates have increased 42% in the last year. Now, the trick of a fact or statistic is on the state exam, you will not have access to the internet or, looking up statistics. So unless you just know one and just happen to randomly know the topic, that's going to be a little bit difficult for you to do on that day of testing. A metaphor or simile, it's kind of tough for our topic, for like an argumentative essay, but something like, this is the never-ending story that I would like to end. Kind of like a play on the words of never-ending story, or there are no such thing as infinite lives. Again, playing on the whole idea that, when you die in a video game, you don't, you can just restart. In life, there is no restart, something like that. A story hook, you could definitely do with this, and you could tell a brief story about a child who was possibly killed. It doesn't have to be true. You can just make it up through an act of violence, or a story about how, someone got into a fight on a playground as a result of an act of violence. A description hook would be something very descriptive, perhaps describe a bullet or a gun. And how do you know that? How would you know how to describe, the whole parts of a gun, or how to make a bullet? And you could tie it into your essay by saying, and I learned this from watching a movie, or I learned this from watching, the video game. And then the quotation hook, something that someone says, again, you will not have access to looking up quotes. So unless they're in the articles you read, or you just know them offhand, this one would be kind of difficult. Something like, even when you win, you keep going. That's a positive quotation about video games. But everybody knows who Chucky is, right? So I wrote down a quote here about that Chucky said. It says, "Well, John, it's been fun, but I got to go have a date with a 6-year-old, Chucky." So that would be interesting, because if I was choosing, if I was reading that first line and I read that, I'd be like, what is this essay about? And it makes me want to read it more. So for today's assignment, and for the weekend, this is due Monday, I want you to go down through this argumentative introductory paragraph worksheet. Which of the 7 hooks do you believe fits your essay best? You want to pick something that's appropriate for your topic and write your answer there. And then write your actual hook as if you were starting your sentence or starting your paragraph right there, okay? Keep on scrolling down, and it's going to describe to you that after your introductory statement, after your hook, then you're going to want to back it up with some more sentences, 3 more sentences. The first line is a very general sentence about your topic. I've given you an example here. Teenagers have a strong passion for playing video games and watching movies. This is a statement that no one could argue with. It's like, well, duh, yeah, they do. It's just a big general statement. This is your lines, okay? So I want you to write yours there. Then you're going to give another one, a little bit more detailed. So you have your first sentence, then your second sentence, and here's your third sentence. Is going to be, it should be a little bit more specific to your argument. My example is, most teenagers spend up to 7 hours playing video games and watching movies. Okay, so you're going to write your sentence there. And I only have a minute longer, so I'm going to press pause real quick. Okay, and then the third sentence is, this should briefly summarize the articles that you've read. Okay, you just kind of take the big main ideas and throw them in there. My example is, many researchers suggest that all of this time in front of screen has greatly changed our culture, especially our young adolescents. And so you're going to write that there. I'll have to do another video on the sinker or the thesis statement. So I'll catch you in a few.